It took me a long time to recognise that my spending habits were keeping me in a place where I was struggling for money. And whilst it might have been obvious to the people around me, I think when you're in the middle of a situation, it's harder for you to see what's going on. So in this video, I'm going to share 5 common reasons why you might be struggling for money and what you can do about it. So reason number 1 is living beyond your means. Throughout my 20s, my go-to way of affording things I couldn't really afford to buy was using a credit card. I do think that signing up for a credit card was one of the biggest mistakes I made, because really I should have been focusing on managing the money that I had coming in from my job. A lot of my purchases on the credit card were for things I didn't really need or going out socialising with friends. I was working in London at the time, so it certainly wasn't cheap, but I felt that I had to join in because I didn't want to miss out on anything. It took me a long time, but what really helped me was to start keeping a spreadsheet of my income that was coming in and all of my expenditure. It helped me realise what I was wasting my money on and what I really needed to cut back on in terms of my spending. Reason number 2 is impulse buying. I do think my spending habits were kind of a way to alleviate boredom, but also to cope with difficult feelings I was having about myself and my confidence levels at the time. When I worked in London, my office was really near one of my favourite shops, so often I would go there at lunchtime and look around and buy things that were very pretty, very nice, but I didn't really need them. Impulse buying is something I still have to keep an eye on now, because I do tend to get that fear of missing out if something is on sale or if something looks really nice and I feel I absolutely need it when I don't really. What I've learned to do is take a step back, put it in my save it later, and come back to it a few days or a week later when I'm in a much more reflective, considered frame of mind to see whether I do really need that thing. Reason number 3 is getting drawn into the adverts on social media. Now, I'm so old that social media wasn't a thing until I was in my mid-20s, so it didn't really affect me so much back then. But over time, as we've seen, we're getting a lot more personalised ads on our social media feeds now, so we can't get away from this bombardment of marketing campaigns and adverts telling us these things that we absolutely need and we need to buy them now, otherwise we're going to miss out on them. Reducing my time on social media has helped so that I'm not so exposed to these adverts, and just, I guess, trying to keep in mind that it's the job of marketers to convince us that we need these things and that a lot of times we don't need them. And do let me know down in the comments if there are things that you feel have kept you struggling for money which you've now overcome, so that we can all learn from each other. Reason number 4 is buying things cheaper that don't last as long. Now, I know that not everybody is in a position to buy higher quality items that might last as long. We're all in different circumstances and situations, and we've got to live according to what we can afford. There's no point in buying something high quality to get yourself into debt. For my personal situation, there were a few years where I bought secondhand sofas, and they were great at the time, but the quality deteriorated really quickly because obviously they'd been used before, and we started to get aches and pains, so they weren't doing our joints much good either. So we're soon going to be moving house, and we made the decision to purchase new sofas. We'd got the money saved and we felt it was a good investment for our physical health and our comfort. So I think if you can, if you're able to save for a higher quality item that is going to last you for a longer time, then I think it can be worth doing. But like I say, I know not everyone is in a position to do so. Number 5 is replacing items when it might be cheaper to mend them. So for example, I've got a winter coat that I wear when I'm out walking or when I'm just going out on errands. Had a bit of an accident in the washing machine where I overfilled the machine, and I think the hood must have got stuck against the drum and the friction wore a hole in the hood. To my shame, my first thought was go online and buy a new coat, and I realised that I'm very lucky to be able to do that. Luckily, I had the sense of mind to take a step back and then think about, well, could I actually patch over that hole? And so I went on Etsy. I found a seller who was selling a pair of these really cute little leaf patches. I wanted 2 patches because I didn't just want one patch on one side of the hood, which could have looked a bit weird. I put the patches on and I think they look okay. It's covered the hole, it's reduced the risk of the hole spreading, and I was quite proud of myself for having made the effort to do that. Now, of course, it's not necessarily always cheaper to mend something as opposed to replacing it. One example might be if you've got a really old car and you're getting a lot of repair bills on it which are far and above the value of the actual car, would it be cheaper over the longer term to buy a newer car with fewer repair bills, fewer things wrong with it? That's an individual decision, of course, and depending on someone's circumstances and the item, we all have to weigh that up. But yes, sometimes making do and mending isn't isn't always the best option, but certainly for me in this case with my coat, it definitely saved me a lot of money, and it gave me a lot of satisfaction to mend some things so that I could continue wearing it. So like I said earlier, buying things that you don't really need is one habit that can keep you struggling for money. So if you'd like some tips to help you stop buying things that you don't need, then click on the video that's on the screen now. Thanks so much for watching, take good care, and I'll see you again soon.